أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى إطرة الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وأجل فرجهم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We're continuing on our talks on bringing the Hajj back home. And we're doing this in honor of Imam Muhammad al-Taqi alayhi salam, whose Shahadat day we will be commemorating in a week's time, inshallah. And we have actually linked it to Imam Muhammad al-Taqi al-Jawad alayhi salam because of the discussion that he had with Yahya ibn Ahkam on when he was asked about what is the kafara for a person in Ihram who hunts. So we're looking at how to bring Hajj back home in honor of remembering Imam Muhammad Taqi alayhi salam, and also because of the COVID situation that we find ourselves in. None of us can go to Hajj, so it would be nice to bring it home. And also the fact that Hajj is around the corner as well. It's only a few days after the Shahadat day of the Imam. So it would be a good idea to actually not only take something away from these talks in honor of Imam Muhammad Taqi alayhi salam, but maybe actually listen to these talks again during the first 10 days of Hajj, so that we can actually try to bring it home, inshallah. So let's look at the Umrah, which is the first part of the Hajj Tamattu, is the Umrah Tamattu. And as I said, this can be done at any time between the 1st of Shawwal to the 8th of Dhul Hijjah. So the Umrah is made up of 5 different rites, which is the Ihram, the Tawaf, the 2 Rakat Salah of Tawaf, the Sa'i, and the Taqsir. And we will look at each one individually and see how what we can bring back home from each of these rites. But the first thing to remember is that each of these rites has a niyyah, and this niyyah is really, really important. The niyyah is the intention of why we're doing what we're doing, and it's important to do it at the beginning of each and every action during the entire Hajj. So how can we bring this back home? Well, first of all, we have to remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. And I have not created the jinn and the men except that they should serve me, they should worship me, they should enslave themselves to me. So thinking of that, how can I bring the niyyah home? So if I remember that the niyyah, a pure niyyah, a true niyyah, a niyyah that actually will have the maximum benefit, is when it is only done for the pleasure of Allah and in the way He tells me to do it. So it has 2 aspects to it, only in the pleasure of Allah and in the way He tells me to do it. And I have also been told by the Holy Prophet ﷺ that every action is judged on its intention. So therefore, whichever action I do, I'm not worried about the results of that action. I'm not worried about how that action will play out. The only thing that I'm worried about is the intention, the niyyah. And if I can concentrate on the niyyah, then every single action of mine becomes a worship, becomes in serving Allah, ensures that I'm enslaving myself to Allah. So how do I do this? I need to, today, maybe if I can take some time out and before every action, I actually think of my niyyah and I say it out loud. If I tell myself, Ya Allah, I'm doing this for the pleasure of Allah, for you, and I'm going to do it in the way that you tell me to do it, then it will focus me in order to do that action with the correct niyyah, inshallah. So let us start with looking at the Ihram, which is the first rite of Umrah Tamattu. The Ihram actually means making something allowable forbidden. And in the Ihram of Hajj, there are 25 things which become haram after we get into the state of Ihram. If we compare this to the Salah, the Takbiratul Ihram at the beginning of the Salah, so after I've done the niyyah, the first takbir, the first Allahu Akbar that I say, which is called the Takbiratul Ihram, actually serve the same sort of purpose, in that ordinary things which are normally allowable, like eating, drinking, talking, laughing, walking, all become haram throughout the Salah until the Salah is completed. So how do I bring this home? I need to remind myself that I am the soul and focus on the soul. How do I do this? By Allah making something allowable, something ordinary, by making it not allowable, He's trying to focus me on something that is more important. It reminds me to look past the normal, past the ordinary, look past my physical body and see what is inside me, what is deeper inside me, what is of more value inside me, and that is the soul. So if I remember by reminding myself that the ordinary things that I normally do have been disallowed, in the same way, the ordinary thing that I see myself as the physical body, if I can put that aside and remember that I am the soul within and try to focus on the soul, how do I do this? I need to think of one thing that I can do in which way I can feed and nourish my soul. This can be done through reciting the Holy Quran, reciting extra salah, reciting du'as, some sort of dhikr, salawat, whatever it is. It's literally just feeding my soul, nourishing my soul by connecting it to Allah through whatever dhikr, whichever way that I find works for me. Also, the ihram has three critical requirements. There is the dress of ihram, which is for the body, there is the niyyah, which is for the mind, and there is the talbiyah, which is for the soul. Now, when I have done all three of these, then I enter into the state of ihram. So how do I bring this home? So we're told by the fourth Imam, we have a hadith from the fourth Imam when he's talking to Shibli, and he says to him, so when you came down at the Miqat, did you intend that you were removing the garments of sin and putting on the garments of obedience? The Miqat is where we put on the dress of Ihram and then say the niyyah and the talbiyah. So Imam's actually asking Shibli, when you actually removed your garments and put on the garments of Ihram, were you actually thinking to yourself that I'm removing the garments of sin and putting the garments of obedience on? And then actually when we say the talbiyah, here we're saying, here I am, O Allah, here I am, you have no partner, here I am. Indeed, all praise belongs to you, and indeed, all blessings belong to you. Indeed, all sovereignty belongs to you, you have no partner. So this is the talbiyah. Now let me see how I can bring all of this home. If I realize that that although I am the soul, I have to actually look at myself holistically. So here the Ihram talked about looking at the body, the mind, and the soul. So when I look at the body, let me actually take the words of Imam and think about how I can shed my old self, shed the old habits and the sins that I had that have pulled me towards away from Allah, and actually think about how I can now put on the garments of obedience. If there is a sin that I am committing, then let me move away from that sin and ask for forgiveness for it. If there is a habit that I have which focuses me on other than Allah, and this can be any habit, even if it is an allowable habit, if it is something that is the thing that I think about, is the thing that I crave for, then it is something that is other than Allah. And I need to move away from that habit. And this habit can be something as simple as coffee or cigarette smoking or cups of tea or caffeine, whatever it is, that if I feel like I cannot function without it, then there is a problem in that. The only thing that I require in my life to function is Allah. And I need to start looking at my life and thinking, what is it that I need to shed of my old self? When I look at the mind, let me realize that I have allowed my mind free reign, and I've allowed it to think whatever it wants to think. We're told that we have 70,000 thoughts a day, and 80 to 90% of these thoughts are repetitive, and they're mostly negative. So let me actually be the watcher of my thoughts. Let me recognize that I am having these negative thoughts and actually change them into positive thoughts, because I can control my mind. I just haven't realized that up to now. And if I actually take control of my mind by watching my thoughts and changing my negative thoughts into positive thoughts, then I will be moving closer to Allah. And when it comes to the soul, let me actually connect through knowledge. Let me actually know a little bit about Allah, have some sort of ma'rifah of Allah, understand Allah through looking at the talbiyah. Here I'm telling Allah that all praise belongs to you. Why does all praise belong to Him? Because He is the one that does create something from nothing. Whenever I do something, whenever I create something, whenever I achieve something, it is through what He has given me. So the praise goes back to Him. All blessings that I have belong to Him. Everything belongs to him. He has no partner. And when I understand this, then my soul will be able to connect to him. Let me look at how I can improve each one of these things. Let me look at my body, my mind, and my soul. Through my body, shedding anything that takes me away from Allah. Through my mind, changing my negative thoughts into my positive thoughts. And through my soul, connecting to Allah through having some sort of marifah of him. The other things that we look at in Ihram is the actual dress. Everyone is dressed the same. There is no sign of status, wealth, or religiosity visible. How do I bring this home? I need to remove any kind of status, any racism, sexism, any ism that makes me feel superior to others. I need to remove that from my mind. I need to make sure that I do not make judgments on people. And how do I do that? Let me today look at every person I see and notice a positive in them. Again, continuing the theme of positivity. Clothes actually create a separation, a discrimination, and an ego. How do I bring this home? Let me actually break my ego for the sake of Allah. Where and when is my ego most at play? If I know this, then I can actually start working and breaking my ego. Allah tells us in the Holy Quran, مَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِرَجُلٍ مِّن قَلْبَيْنِ فِي جَوْفِهِ. Allah has not made for any man, any human being, two hearts within him. If I love myself, then I cannot love Allah. I need to break my ego for the sake of Allah. What one thing will I do to lessen my ego? What one thing will I do to be able to break my ego? I can only do that if I know where and when it is most at play. There is no I but we in the state of Ihram because we're all dressed the same way. And this brings about the concept of unity. We are all one ummah. How do I bring this home? There must be unity within myself before I look outwards. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran, Lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. Why do you say that which you do not do? I need to make sure that I have this internal unity within my heart where there is only Allah in my heart, but also I need to have this internal unity where my words and actions are unified. I need to make sure whatever I say, I do. I need to make sure whatever I'm saying, that's what I'm living up by. If I am saying that Allah is the greatest, then I cannot be pulled into anything else. If I am telling others to do something, then I need to make sure I'm doing it first and foremost. I need to teach people through my actions, not just by my words. So I need to think about one thing which I will now do to bring unity within myself. And finally, the Ihram reminds us of death. It is like a coffin that I wear, except here there is a return. So let me bring this home by thinking about how comfortable am I with my death. Not only my death, but of those that I love. How comfortable am I if they die, if they move on their spiritual path towards Allah? And if I'm not comfortable, what one thing will I do to change that, to make me more comfortable? A lot of the times we're scared of death, and that's why we're uncomfortable. And we're scared because we do not know what's going to happen to us. So maybe one of the ways that we can actually make ourselves more comfortable is to actually learn what's going to happen to us after our death. One of the ways we can do this is by reading, and there's a beautiful book written by Sheikh Bahmanpur called Towards Eternal Life. Maybe if I can pick that up and read it, it might make me a little bit more comfortable about my death and the death of those that I love. The other reason that we're not comfortable about our own death is that we know how many sins we've committed and we're worried and we're scared. So maybe here is the chance where I actually think of those sins and ask for forgiveness for those sins so that I can then be comfortable with going to meet my Creator. There is a lot that I have given here for us to take away as practical steps, whether it is to look at our niyyah and actually saying it out loud, whether it is to remind myself that I'm a soul and connect to Allah through some sort of dhikr, whether it is to shed some sort of habit or sin that I may have, or looking at my thoughts and changing my negative thoughts into positive thoughts, and connecting to Allah not through just dhikr but through knowledge as well, and having some sort of understanding of Him. Whether it is to not make judgments on others by looking at the positives in them rather than the negatives, how I can break my ego and concentrating on breaking that ego so that I can bring unity within my heart, and how I can bring unity within my words and actions, and also how I can be comfortable with my death by maybe reading a little bit about what happens after death or asking for forgiveness. Let me take at least one thing away from all of these examples that I have given so that I can actually bring Hajj home, inshallah. Please join me tomorrow to look at the next rite of the Umrah Tamattu in order to bring Hajj home. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.